Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on Thursday, February 27th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern Time. It's 17 degrees out here on Alum Creek and moderately windy, although, not horribly. It's like, 15, 18 miles an hour wind. It's cold and there's no food in the highlands. At the risk of being self-indulgent, well, hell, it's YouTube. Of course it's self-indulgent. We revisit again, as we did just about a week ago. Well, we didn't revisit it then. That was visiting it for the first time. But we revisit it today. And excuse me. And the topic of today's discussion is going to be, well, I almost said going to be briefly. You all know it ain't going to be briefly, guys. Renewing ministry licenses. Let's just read this out together, shall we? Let's see if I can get there. That's better. Renewing ministry licenses. This is the email from the rector. Now, I know he writes this, but it often is written as if a third person has written this. But I'm almost dead certain that he writes this and he's using, I love the royal we, but we'll get there. It'll become evident. Thank you to those who have responded to the email request concerning license renewals. We are still waiting to hear from most of you. Well, there's that pesky homonym here, isn't it? Well, we all make proofreading errors. I know I have. What we need is for, and again, in bold type, guess the bold type was able to be dealt with properly, leaving aside this misspelled here. What we need is for all those who currently serve in some capacity as Sunday school leader, Eucharistic visitor, worship leader, chalice reader, and staff to let it's father, But sometimes I've seen that also used as friar, or, much like BR as brother. Charles, know if you wish to continue in that ministry. Like all of a sudden, people clearly don't want to do this. I mean, has there been something? Well, we can get there later. There are some specific requirements for each of those positions. That would be, well, actually, more properly should be these positions, given the tense of this missive, that need to be fulfilled for renewal, rather than guess where you fit. Contact the rector, and he can work on having license renewal done. Well, leaving aside the sort of generalized higher level functional illiteracy of the tense shifts and mood shifts in this statement, it's almost as if the person who wrote it had learned English as a second language very early in their life, but had never quite internalized the English language. Um, it seems that my little sally earlier in the week about maybe this is all just going to disappear and slide out of sight was not accurate. So clearly this is something this guy's going to grind on for a while. Now, whether he's been told to do this, see, the bishop is out of town. The bishop's on sabbatical. He's out in California writing poetry for 2 or 3 months. And our rector is, as president of the, he's vice president of the diocesan council. The bishop's the president of the diocesan council, but he's out in California. So our rector, as vice president, he's not acting bishop. He can't, but he's functioning as the administrative function of the bishop, not the religious function or the church function of the bishop in his absence. And you just, you wonder about, is this like just a ticking off the box exercise? Is this or is this something he really takes seriously? As something that's really important, as something of substance, as opposed to form? We've all, and I'm sure the people out there who've been in the business world have done this far more than I had to do, thank the good Lord. Well, not for them, but for me. Had to do the ticking in the boxes and the filling in the forms and so forth. And, every now and again there'd be some hot shot UCAS come down from on high at a hospital or something, and you had to, here's a set of forms you got to fill in after each case. And well, and I always said, I said, look, the more cases you can get into a room and turn over, the more money you guys make. So do you want me, one of your fastest working anesthesiologists, do you want me sitting on a stool down there in the recovery room filling out some sort of stupid form, or do you want me trotting back down the hall to get the next case ready to go? And over time, all these things sort of magically go away. Well, they did. They probably won't now, but they did. Now, I initially thought this might be the same sort of thing. He's gonna be able to show them, a series of emails he sent out saying, come do all this. Nobody came in, but yet we have to have people to help with our services. And it's early. It's somewhat early days yet. But we'll see on this. I can't believe he wants to toss overboard people who've been doing this stuff for upwards of 9 years. So, well, actually, I'm one of the newer guys. I've been doing it for 9 years. Now, if this is all of a part, an attempt to get new people to come in and join our merry band, that's great. The more the better. Assuming, they can read clearly and present themselves properly. Yeah, I think it's great. Let's do it. Let's get more people involved. Absolutely. Absolutely. But if this is just some exercise in exercise, asserting hierarchical control over the laity, it's hard to tell. This guy, as I said before, this guy's, a master of passive aggressivity. Well, I am too. So, I have a pretty good handle on what he's trying to do. I just don't know quite why he's trying to do it. Is it purely a power thing? Is it a CYA thing on his part in terms of the people over him? Is it something he actually takes seriously and thinks this is important? Well, if it is, then that's just then, well, if he takes this kind of stuff seriously, then that's almost a respect losing thing, isn't it? You can't take somebody seriously who takes this kind of stuff seriously. I can't. Never have. Doubt I ever will. So things are up in the air. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. It's like anything. If you got something to say to me, say it to me, and I'll give you an honest answer. But I don't play games. I played games up until 1991, and I vowed I wasn't going to play games anymore after that. There was a reason my dad basically rarely went to an organized church service, except for the 3 or 4 years there. For some reason, I don't know why he did it. See, after he retired, well, no, it was actually slightly before he retired. Our church was it was nominally a Methodist church, but the particular guy in there was not at all a Methodist. This was not an Arminian preacher. And leaving that aside, our church building was an 1840s church building, and it was like a lot of those buildings you have. You sort of like you go in. There's like a hall in the bottom. And it didn't have a basement or what's an undercroft or it was just what would be the fellowship rooms and so forth were in the first floor, and then you had stairways went up on either side to the actual nave, sanctuary, chancel area, choir on the second floor. And there's tremendous numbers of churches out there, particularly Presbyterian churches that are built that way to this day. And when we were toward the end there, end meaning late 60s, early 70s, late 60s, running about 3 services in the Sunday morning, and we'd have about 300 to 400 people in each service. It was a big church. And so the push was on to, and we had to get a new building. And well, then of course you go to the thing like, should you tear down the old building and build a new building? And so for some reason, I don't know who invited my dad to be part of this, but they asked him to be part of this. Well, it wasn't an elected vestry, because I don't think the Methodist Church had an elected, I don't know, board of governors, or I don't know what they call them. But one of the biggest surprises of my life was my dad agreed to do this nonsense. And he went into these meetings, and oftentimes they were every week at, Wednesday night or Thursday night. And this was when he was still teaching, working. And anyway, he'd come home and he'd say, well, they tried to do this and they tried to do that. I said this was idiotic or foolish. So I was voted down. And, this went on, and then eventually I guess what he did manage to do was he did manage to hold the rear guard, and because initially they wanted to tear down the old building. And he did finally sort of get them to agree not to tear down the old building, and then they built this very nice looking new church. And now, now they use both of them. Now both buildings are being, are fully used. So, 40 years later, that idea turned out to be okay. And, but, it's like, this is a guy that basically, well, we would go, but he didn't like to go. It wasn't like, oh, gee, I can't wait to go to church. It's like, oh, we're going to go to church. And I think that's one for us kids. And because he didn't really have any use for organized religion at all. He'd sit out there on this wrecked car out by his garden on Sunday morning. And he said repeatedly, he says, I'm closer to God out there on Sunday morning out there in my garden than I ever am in a organized church setting. Well, see, that's that Quaker background. Because all of his grandparents and great-grandparents, they were all Quakers. Well, that's why they came up from North Carolina in 1808, 1811, I guess, actually. And well, so this whole organized, U.S., Episcopal Church USA stuff. That's very reminiscent of a lot of this nonsense as far as I'm concerned. I'll tell you, a lot of this has to do with my professional background. In medical training and in the practice of medicine, if you screw up, first of all, it's usually glaringly obvious. Because a lot of medical practice, at least in the surgical setting, is conducted in public. At least, public, there are a lot of witnesses. And when you're a resident, when you're in training, if somebody asks you a question about a patient and you don't know the answer, the right answer is, I don't know. The right answer is not to make up an answer. Because if you do that, you're going to be found out soon enough. And sometimes that can be important, sometimes it can't be important, but the fact of the matter is you're going to be found out soon enough. And one of the most impressive, this was when I was at the hospital where I was doing anesthesia. And the fellow who had been the chairman of my, when I was an intern down there at Ohio State, he was then now medical director at this hospital. One of the general practice residents who had been assigned to the surgery service, it was very clear that she was a bit of a load and a wastrel and a waste product. And what what happened finally one day was that they asked her a direct question about, did you do thus and so for this patient or to this patient? And she said that she had done, or what was the lab value. I mean, she gave an answer, and then the senior resident, whipped out copies of the nursing notes and things, and basically proved her a liar right in front of everybody in front of Dr. And he says, "You're fired." He says, "You're out of here." He just kicked her out. I mean, he wasn't kicked. She wasn't kicked out. She was kicked out of her residency right then and there. So you see, that's the ethic I come from. So if you've got something to say to me, in other words, if I haven't been doing things right, just tell me. And I'll either change or I'll say I can't change and go away. I mean, it's very easy, guys. If there's something wrong going on, just tell me. Yeah. On the other hand, I'm not going to play this paperwork game, set forth by a hierarchy that I do not respect in the slightest. Over 70% of the people who run the U.S. Episcopal Church don't believe in the reality of the Christian religion. They don't believe in the reality of the resurrection, the reality of the incarnation. They don't believe that. They think Jesus was just a really nice guy that happened, around at a time where people wrote down some stuff about him, and they don't believe he was the Son of God. They don't believe he was God. They don't believe he was the second person of the Trinity. They don't believe the purpose of the church is to worship God. They believe the purpose of the church is to serve as a social service organization. Now, it's great if it can do that. Oh, it's absolutely great if it can do that. And I give a certain amount of money each year for it to do that. Well, maybe not the U.S. Episcopal Church do it, but Lutheran Social Services and food for the poor and that sort of thing. But I can't take this stuff seriously. And since this sort of generalized blanket appeal doesn't seem to take me seriously, I don't think I can take it serious. I'm going to have to stop for a moment here, guys. Let's see if I can pause this bad boy here.